Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Oh my goodness, I feel like I haven't been on in such a long time. I do have an excuse, and a really good one too, actually. Number one, work and school have just been intense, more school than work. I am taking 5 courses this semester, so it's been like ugh. And also I did switch systems, so I switched from PC to iMac thinking it would be, I don't know, maybe the same. And I did switch to iMac because I wanted my own system, and I also wanted to use some of the cooler editing software. And I started with iMovie, very easy, very amazing, and all of that stuff. But when it came to uploading, I was having a lot of trouble. But thankfully, I went to the Apple store, they cleared everything up, and we're back in business. So, as the title suggests, this is a top 10 travel tip video. Now, why would I be making a travel tip video? Well, your girl, me, she, her, is going to Paris. Yes, I will be going to Paris next week, actually, with my husband for my spring break vacation. Can you tell how excited I am? And so because I've done like a bit of traveling, and also I did a lot of research on traveling to Paris. YouTube was an amazing source, especially a channel belonging to this guy Jay Swanson, Jay Swanson. He's an American expat living in France, and his videos are super informative. So with all of my pre-existing knowledge and some of what I learned, I decided to put together a very compact list of 10 travel tips I feel like are super important that you have to adhere to whenever you're traveling, regardless if you're taking a plane trip, a cruise, a bus trip, even a small weekend trip in a neighboring city. I feel like you need to adhere to some, if not all, of these travel tips. So let's get right into it. So travel tip number 1, know before you go. And I think that this one is I want to say it's like the most important tip, but it's really important to learn as much about the country or the city that you're traveling to beforehand. And I want to say, even before you decide to like buy your ticket or whatever, you need to learn as much about that country as possible. YouTube, as I said, it was an amazing source for me as we were getting ready to go to Paris. And when I looked up other cities, there's a bunch of information available on YouTube. Travel companies put their stuff out there, and other YouTubers who travel a lot, and other people who've just been there and who just like to share their experiences, they upload their videos on YouTube. And I definitely feel like it's something you need to check out if you're planning on traveling anytime soon or anytime in the future. Also, just using plain old Google. It is obviously the World Wide Web, and there's so much information which can sometimes be a little overwhelming, hence this top 10 video. But it's always good to do some research about the place that you're traveling before you go. And as I said, you might want to do that even before you book your ticket. Why? Some places are experiencing, for instance, like droughts. They're experiencing political unrest or wars. They're experiencing martial law, terror attacks, sicknesses and stuff like that. You want to know all of this and take that into account before you purchase your ticket. When Zika was very rampant, certain airlines were very, I would say, sympathetic to that. And if you purchased your ticket within a certain time, or if you had to fly within a certain time, they would refund you and all of that stuff. When it comes to some political issues and stuff like that, airlines are not as sympathetic. They're like, okay, you want to go. But they're not going to refund you. So you really want to know these things before you decide the date and before you even purchase your ticket, in my opinion. And even Even if you already purchased your ticket and you're like, oh crap, I already did it, it's still not too late to learn as much as you possibly can about the place that you would like to travel to or that you are traveling to. Tip number 2, check your passport validity. What does that mean? Make sure your passport is valid and it's not going to expire. Some countries are very, like, I want to say anal about it, where when you arrive at your destination, they're very anal about letting people in whose passports may expire like within the next 3 to 6 months and stuff like that, because I think they think you might stay and they don't want to have you in their country with an invalid passport. So as soon as you're done watching this video, go find your passport, go find your ID or driver's license. And also, if you are a permanent resident card holder or a green card holder or any other travel documents that you have, look at all of these. Make sure that your name is spelled correctly. Make sure that the dates are valid for the time that you want to travel. Make sure that your picture is okay, and make sure that you're not going to expire within the time that you have to travel or before that. You know, especially getting a passport can be a pain in the neck. So that's definitely something you want to get right on top of as soon as possible. Tip number 3, notify your bank before you go. So even when you live, let's say in the US, for instance, if you leave New York and you're probably traveling to like Florida or California or something, and your bank notices that you're making a purchase outside of your state, they might freak out and cancel your card, which is the last thing you want to do. A lot of people travel and decide that, you know, they're not going to use as much cash, that they're going to use their card. They think it's a safer method, which it might be, but then if you don't notify your bank that you're going to be away from your city or your home country, they will freak out and cancel your card. And you don't want to be away from home with no access to your money. So make sure you call them and make sure you get everything laid out in terms of, even though you have a layover in another city or country and how long you're going to be there, make sure you let them know the dates that you're going and the dates that you're returning. And also just be very careful when using your card when you're in a foreign country, which leads me to part A of tip number 3, which is to check your foreign transaction fees. What does that mean? We all know that banks charge you for taking your money out of the bank and using your money. Weird, right? Well, since that's the thing, when you are traveling outside of your country especially, be very mindful that the fees for withdrawing from an ATM or making certain purchases with your card, those fees might be a lot higher than they would be in your home country. So you want to know what these fees are before you go and see if you're comfortable with them. If not, then you'll decide, okay, I'm not going to use my card as often, and I'm going to take cash with me before I go. Please just make sure you're on top of it with your card and your bank, and be very, very careful because of obviously identity theft. Let's go to tip number 4. Very important tip, check the weather. If you're leaving a cold climate to go to a hot climate, obviously you want to check the weather because you want to pack and dress accordingly. You don't want to leave somewhere that's like 20 or 30 degrees with your big heavy jacket going to somewhere that's like 80 or 90 degrees. You will be hella uncomfortable. So you want to make sure that you have appropriate clothing and appropriate gear in terms of like sunscreen, mosquito repellent, and all of that stuff. Or if where you're going is like super rainy and all of that, you want to make sure you have proper shoes for the rain, umbrellas, ponchos, raincoats, whatever. You just want to make sure that you're very, very on top of what the weather is like, what the general climate is in that place before you go. Tip number 5. If you've decided not to use your card and you want to use cash, or even if you decide you want to take some cash with you, it's important to get your currency changed in your home country, because in other countries, especially at like their airports and banks, the fees may be a little higher. And also, it's a good idea to get all of your cash in small bills. Why? Well, you don't want to be at a market buying a piece of craft with $100 bill, depending on the kind of city that you're in. So for instance, I don't want to walk around with €100 trying to buy one croissant in France. So you want to get smaller denominations like possibly 20s, 5s, and 10s. And if that country has singles or just dollars, you want to make sure you get some of those also from your bank before you leave. Another thing is, especially in countries where they don't speak English and you're not familiar with the currency, you don't want to take out too much money. And then when you have to receive change, that you get duped and they give you the wrong amount of change and you're not sure what the denominations are and all of that stuff. Get smaller bills. It will make your transactions a lot easier and it will make you less of a target. Again, you don't want to be out in public pulling out hundreds and 50s. People are watching you and they may think that you're a baller and that you got it like that. That's not the message you want to send. So let's go down to tip number 6. This is a safety tip. Know the exact name and street address of the hotel or hostel or villa or whatever that you're staying at. Even if it's an Airbnb, know the exact name and the exact address. When you're going somewhere where English is not the primary language, that name may be in a different language, and some hotels have really long names and all of that other stuff. So you want to make sure you know exactly what that name is and exactly what the street and cross streets are, if that's possible. I got this tip from Travel and Leisure actually, and one tip was that you should take a business card from the hotel when you get there and keep it in your pocket. Don't take a picture of the business card, because if your phone dies, guess what? You're out of luck. So take the actual business card, and if there's no information on the street address and stuff, ask the concierge what that is and write it down on the card. Just make sure you're very well informed. Also with that, when you're leaving your hotel for whatever reason, or when you're going to your hotel, you want to make sure you pay attention to the route that is being taken. So in the event, a taxi driver decides to be smart with you and try to take you somewhere else, that you are instantly aware that, something's not right in terms of the route that you're taking. Now, tip number 7 is to learn the language. If you are going somewhere where they do not speak your primary language, which if you're watching this video, it would be English. So if you're going somewhere where they speak French, where they speak anything else besides English, you want to make sure that you are, well versed in a few keywords and phrases. Using your Google Translate is a great way to do that. In Google Translate, when you type in the phrase or the word that you want to know, when it comes up and it gets translated, you could actually press the little speaker thing on the side and it will say it out loud. And you could do that as many times as you want until you feel like you're comfortable with saying whatever it is that you need. And I think this is something you need to do before you actually get on your way to your trip. Tip number 8. Learn the customs and respect them. When we leave the Western world, like sometimes the Caribbean or the United States or even Canada, we get to other places and then we go wild. Sometimes we're boisterous, we're loud, we're belligerent even, we drink too much and all of that other stuff. And when I say we, I don't mean me because I don't drink, but I mean like Westerners in general. Sometimes we like to just be doing the absolute most in foreign countries, and a lot of countries are not very tolerant of that behavior. They have very low tolerance for tourists, and they do also have very low tolerance for people of color. So you have to be very mindful of that. So no getting into fights, because immediately you may be in the wrong and you may get your butt handed to you because you may be outnumbered. No drinking and acting crazy in the streets. Be very alert because you may get taken advantage of. And just all the loud extra behavior, like check that on the plane. Like you don't really need all of that. Go on vacation, have a good time. Be mindful of the customs. Be mindful of the way that you dress, the way that you carry yourself, because some countries are, as I said, very conservative, and revealing clothing or uncovered heads may just not be their way, and it might be very disrespectful to them. So again, be super mindful of that. Tip number 9. Leave the flashy jewelry and all the extra electronics at home. Unless you're a filmmaker, you do not need your big DSLR camera with all of your other lens attachments and all of that other stuff. You really don't need all of it. Get a simple camera that takes great pictures. Canon makes a very small GX7, and Sony makes a camera of the same size, and they are very modest looking, although they're great cameras and a lot of vloggers use them, and they're quite pricey. but they're not as flashy and bulky to travel with. Also, all your video games, and everybody needs a tablet and all of that. When you're on vacation, you're not going to be looking at your tablet. You might just need it for when you're on the airplane. And most airplanes have the movies or the screens built into the seats. Just if you are going to do it, just be mindful of how much of it you're going to travel with. With your jewelry, you don't need all the flashy chains. I wear pretty modest looking studs. You just want to like tone it down a bit, because those things can make you a target, unfortunately. Now, tip number 10 is check your phone plan. I know someone who assumed that a particular plan applied to them, and they went to Cuba and they ended up having to pay like over $1,000 in their phone bill when they came back. And that kind of opened my eyes to, oh crap, I need to check with my phone company to see what plans they offer. And luckily, when I called T-Mobile yesterday, they told me that data and texts are free when I'm gonna be in Paris, but calls are 20 cents a minute. That's an amazing plan. Now, not all companies offer this plan, so you want to make sure you ask questions, you read the fine print. You want to be very, very well informed, because you do not want to return, especially when you have a postpaid plan. You really don't want to return to a very large phone bill. Nobody needs that in their life. So make sure you call, make sure you let them know what dates you're going to be gone, and also just to be very well informed about the roaming packages that they offer and what those fees are like. Now, let me give you a bonus tip. Sometimes when you travel, sometimes we like to taste local cuisine, we like to sample different things, and sometimes we're not fully aware of what the ingredients are in some of these things. It's a good idea to pack with you your Pepto-Bismol or your Imodium AD. If you're in a country that you're not familiar with, and especially if it's one that does not speak English, you do not want at midnight to be running around in the streets asking for directions to the pharmacy, and when you get there, trying to explain to them that you have diarrhea or you're throwing up. You just don't want to do that. I always travel with Pepto-Bismol, even though sometimes I don't think I've ever really used it. I usually travel with it, and then when I get back, it like sits on my dresser forever until I have to throw it away. But I appreciate the fact that I have it, because also the fact that it costs me a few dollars here, and I don't want to venture somewhere else and have to pay a lot of money for it. So, Imodium and Pepto-Bismol. Be very mindful that you may need those things. And also be aware of your allergies. Like, ask questions. Try to figure out what's in the dish before you actually consume it. It may look great, but, you don't want to risk it. You don't want to get sick. Also, pack all of the medication that you may need in terms of your heart medication, your blood pressure medication, your EpiPens, and all of that other stuff. Again, you can have an allergic reaction or get sick anywhere, and especially if you're on a medicine regimen, especially like blood pressure and heart medicine, you kind of don't want to feel like you're on vacation, so you don't need it. You need it all the time. Make sure that you have it with you. Now, here is the absolute last and bonus tip. Safety. It is so important that regardless of where you are in this world, that you have to function on the highest level of safety. And this applies especially when you leave your home, like if you're traveling, whether you're going to another city or another country, another island, it doesn't even matter. You need to be safe. While researching France, I found out that there's a lot of pickpocketing happening, and there's a lot of like scamming going on. They try to give you a fist bump and then put a bracelet on your hand and demand that you pay for the bracelet. They ask you to sign a petition, and then while you're busy doing that, somebody else is coming and trying to rob you. They crowd around you on the train, and then they try to pickpocket you that way. It's just so many different little schemes. Or they're playing that little card game where they have like 3 cards, and then you have to try to figure out which one is which. And even though you see people winning, you're like, okay, let me try my luck. Those people who are winning are actually in cahoots with the people who are conducting the games. So when you see these little street games happening, stay clear. When you see people trying to walk up to you, ask you to sign things, or try to high five you on fist bump, no, and you don't have to be aggressive, but be very adamant and be very assertive about it, and just pay attention to your belongings. Be very mindful of your backpack. The new thing is to use a razor blade under the backpack and empty the contents out, especially when you're in a like packed and crowded area and you don't realize it until it's too late. So be super duper mindful of those things. Also be mindful of when you're getting into taxis to make sure that the taxi is reputable. Make sure that even though you have to pretend that you're calling someone to tell them, okay, I'm getting into this car, it's whatever, whatever on the license plate and whatever, make sure that you're being safe and super duper vigilant. I mean, it could literally make the difference between you having a great vacation and you end up, getting hurt or getting robbed or any of that stuff. So guys, these are my top 10 and probably 2 bonuses travel tips. I hope that these tips help you as much as they have helped me, because I've definitely used these before. And so as I said, I'll be going to Paris and I will be doing a sort of a, not really a get ready with me, but more of a what I have in my suitcase. I'm going to do a packing video basically just to show you some of the things that I take with me on almost all of my trips and what I'll be taking specifically for this trip. Stay tuned for that. And before you ask, yes, I said yes. Yes, I will be vlogging in Paris. I will do a general vlog on my camera, but I will also be using my phone and be using this app called WeVideo, where I'll do short video clips and splice that into one huge video, which I will be uploading every time I get data and all of that other stuff. But guys, I'm so excited and I hope to take you along with me. Have a great day. Thanks again for watching my video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Bye.